Hello everyone and welcome to this video. I hope you're having a fantastic day and I'm here to make it even better because I'm gonna show you how to make the Louise Carmen / traveler's notebook, whatever you want to call them, leather journals yourself. These journals are so much fun to make and they're also very easy and quick to make. And you save up a bunch of money because you don't spend like 300 euros on the Louise Carmen journal. If you don't want to. Obviously, the journals are stunning as well, but I personally just didn't want to spend that much money on just the leather cover. So we're making it ourselves. And without further ado, let's head straight into the tutorial. These are all the things you will need to make your own leather journal. I use quite soft leather, which doesn't hold the tension of the elastics as nicely as hard leather, so I would recommend you to buy harder leather if you wanted to keep its form at all times. And if you want to decorate your journal cover, you need some charms, and depending on what kind of charms you have, you might also need some rings and clasps to attach them to the journal. Alrighty, now that we got that out of the way, we can actually start with the journal. And the first thing you gotta do is figure out how big your journal cover needs to be. For that, you just stack up all of your journals and measure out the width, the height and the length you would need to cover them completely. And then you also add quite a few centimeters in the length so that the leather can overlap once everything is closed. Now, if you want to do this for an A5 journal, you can just copy my measurements, but if you have special journal sizes or you want to do this for A6, this is the process you're going to follow. And the best way to check if you like the size is by making a little paper dummy. That way you will make sure everything fits nicely before you cut the leather. Trust me, I've done that mistake once. And then lastly, to figure out where the spine will be, I just folded over the paper to cover up the front of the journal and pressed down the side so that there would be a crease that marked the spine. I would advise you to really take your time with this step because once you cut into the leather, there's no going back. And once you're happy with the size, it's time to mark where the eyelets will be. To be honest, I just eyeballed it and made sure it looked more or less even, but you're just gonna place the eyelets onto the paper and make sure there's enough space between each of them so that they won't touch. And for me, that meant around 3 millimeters between each of the eyelets in one row, and then the second row I placed around 5 millimeters lower than the first row. You're gonna have 6 eyelets at the top, 6 eyelets at the bottom, and one in the middle for the elastic cord that is holding the journal closed. And now that everything is measured out and you're 100% sure that this is the size that you want, you can go ahead and cut your leather. This is actually surprisingly easy and you can either use a pair of scissors or, even better if you have, I would use an X-Acto knife. I also decided to round up the corners because I personally prefer that look and I just think it looks a little bit more polished and professional, but that could just be me. But for that I just used a random round object to trace the curve and then cut along the edge. Okay, now we have our leather cover, and I would say the hardest part is done because the hardest part is definitely getting the measurements right, but if you do it on a piece of paper like I did and check it a bunch of times with your journals, you should be absolutely fine. And I also decided to round the corners because I personally think it looks a lot more professional and like finished. And the next step is to cut out the holes, and your eyelets should come with a tool to punch the holes. If you don't have that, you can buy a hole puncher as well on Amazon or eBay or wherever you want to shop. And essentially it's just a little metal stick with a big hole in the bottom that is gonna be exactly the size that you need for your eyelets. And to make it a little bit easier, I just stick the paper onto my leather. You can use double-sided tape or you can use the little clasp that holds the paper onto the leather, and then you can just hammer in the holes through the paper and the leather at the same time. Once you hammered all the holes into the leather, it's time to put in the eyelets. They consist of 2 parts. One of them is a bit bigger and has like a little stem. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but I hope you can see what I mean. And the other thing is just a little metal circle. You're going to put the bigger part from the outside of the leather towards the inside so that the metal circle is on the outside, because this is essentially what is going to show on your journal. And then you're going to turn the leather so that the inside is facing up, and you're going to put the second metal ring on top of it, and now you're going to use the eyelet tool to hammer it down. And by doing so, you secure the eyelet in place. This sounded very complicated, but trust me, when you have the eyelets in front of you, you will just see what I mean. And you just do these steps for all the holes so that every hole is secured with an eyelet. Now pretty much all the work is done and we only have to choose what kind of elastic cord we want to use. I was very torn between the green and the red one, but in the end I decided to go with the red for a little bit more of a pop of color. I started with the cords for the notebook, and you're just gonna thread the cord through the eyelets so that it only shows at the top and the bottom of the outside of your leather, and the rest is inside of your journal cover. Make sure there is some tension before you knot the elastic cord, so that way your journals will be nice and tight in your cover. You're gonna repeat that for all the eyelets, and in my case I had 3 elastics for 3 to 6 notebooks. The last step is to burn the edges of the elastics so it wouldn't fray. Now we are attaching the elastic that is going around the journal cover. First you're going to measure how much you would need, and you want this to be pretty tight so that everything is secured nicely. And one thing I didn't realize when I chose my elastic cord is that because I only used 1 eyelet in the bag, it meant that I had to thread the cord twice through that 1 eyelet, and in my case that was very tight, because my eyelets are 3 millimeters big and my elastic is 2 millimeters, which worked out fine for all the other cords. But because I had to thread it twice through 1 eyelet, it's obviously gonna add up to 4 millimeters of elastic cord, which is very hard to thread through. It worked, but just keep that in mind when you choose your elastic cord. And again, we're going to cut off the excess elastic and burn the edges so nothing is going to fray. So if you made it this far, you are practically done with your notebook cover, and now you can decorate it and also make some folds inside of the cover, which is what I'm gonna do right now. I still have this scrap piece left, and I was thinking of just making a little fold here on the inside by just gluing it down. So I will just use regular like liquid glue to glue this together, and I think it should be fine. I've done it on my mini version as well. Here you can see it. And it's holding up. You obviously can't rip too hard on it, but if you just put a few papers in it, it should be definitely fine to just glue it down. So yeah, this is what I'm gonna do right now, and I will show you exactly how I'm doing it. The folders are pretty self-explanatory. I just used my scrap piece of leather, cut it to the size of my cover, rounded the corners so they would match, and glued it down with all-purpose glue. The all-purpose glue worked surprisingly well, and I'm sure you could also use a hot glue gun if you prefer that, but I was surprised at how sturdy everything is and you don't need to sew anything. And now you're pretty much done and you can decorate your journal, which is absolutely the best part about this. All my charms are from Etsy and they didn't have anything on them to attach it to the elastic cords, so I just added some metal rings, and for the big charm at the front I also added a charm clasp so that I can exchange it easily if I wanted to. Alrighty, you are all finished with your Louise Carmen dupes. I hope you are as obsessed as I am with these, and I thought I would just quickly show you how I decorated them, because I think this is also part of the big fun of these journals, because you can decorate them so much and personalize them to your own taste, and that is something that I absolutely adore about these. So for my A6 notebook, I decided to go with silver eyelets and silver charms. These pearls I had left over from a broken necklace, and they look so cute on here. And they also fit perfectly with this little heart that also has a white pearl in the middle. I also love the blue and orange combo. I wasn't too sure at first, but I think it looks absolutely stunning. And then when you open this notebook, I made this little folder here. For this one I made it a little bit smaller, and one where you can put your stuff in from the top. And I think that looks really cute, and it also elevated the whole look of the journal in my opinion. It also gives me more room to decorate because I can put pictures up here, and then I also put a picture here on the cover of my first journal. And then the A5 one that we made in this video, I also absolutely love it. I love the gold and red combination with the brown. I think it looks so stunning. Something I do want to say is this leather is a lot flimsier and a lot like soft than, for example, this one of the orange notebook. And the softer your leather is, the easier it will like crunch up into areas where there is applied pressure, like at the eyelets where the elastics come through, and also in the back. So keep that in mind. If you want a very stiff and clean look, you should definitely buy hard leather that doesn't bend or fold so easily. But I figured if you fill the soft leather covers up with enough journals, then everything is stretched out enough so it actually looks pretty good to me. And on here we have 2 cute golden charms. And then on this side I put 3 little charms in, and guys, this was so hard to do because I don't have my jewelry tool set with me in my room because I moved recently, so a few things are still in boxes and I just didn't plan on needing this, so I had to use just a random tool out of my parents' toolbox, and that thing wasn't working the way it was supposed to work, but we made it through. This took forever, like I almost gave up. And then when you open this one, I'm actually obsessed with the decoration in this. I mean, come on. I love the long folder on the side. It really gives enough space to put on big things. For example, I put in here my letter that I want to open when I'm 25. And then we have some cute photos. And in the cover of my Muji planner, I put in a postcard from Portugal. And also these ripped cards that I got when like a magician did a magic trick. So I thought these were really fun to put in here as well. So yeah, these are my 2 decorated journals. I love them very, very much. And I would also love to see your journal if you end up making one, so send me over a DM on Instagram if you want to. I would be so happy to see it. And that is pretty much all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to give it a like and also maybe subscribe to my channel. I don't do tutorial videos a lot, but I do lifestyle vlogs and also travel vlogs, so maybe it's also something that you would enjoy watching. And I hope to see you next week in my new video. Bye bye!